Welcome to this week's edition of Cougar Review. There doesn't seem to be a shortage of comedies involving attractive actors hanging out in exotic locales, but when they're done right, like Netflix's Ibiza, they can be magical. Ibiza stars Gillian Jacobs as a woman on a business trip in Barcelona with her friends, who meets a handsome DJ that leads them on a fun weekend full of sex, drugs, and EDM. Ibiza doesn't look like your average hangout comedy, with director Alex Rickenbach and cinematographer Daniel Moder opting to let various hues of blue and green wash over the screen to give the film a much more emotive, nostalgic look than any similar films. It's not breaking any new ground, but it doesn't need to. It's just so much fun to hang out with Jacobs and her friends, played by Phoebe Robinson and Vanessa Bayer. Rickenbach and the Gangbusters script by Lauren Kahn have a unique understanding of what makes a hangout comedy successfully feel like hanging out. Breaking from our usual film coverage, I wanted to focus a bit on a new documentary series on Netflix. Evil Genius chronicles the story of the stranger-than-fiction true story of the elaborate and still not fully solved case earlier this century, involving a pizza man robbing a bank with a bomb around his neck and its bizarre ties to the death of another man whose body was found in a freezer. Rather than attempt to find concrete answers, Evil Genius is content with piling on new details as they emerge and letting the strange story become even stranger with every new piece of information. It's not exactly a well-constructed documentary, but it's a story so singular that any true crime junkies watching will have their appetites filled with this quick burn series. So it was tough to pad out our usual 2-minute block this week, since nobody wanted to open a film in theaters against this week's heavy hitter. That's right, Solo, a Star Wars story is here, but is it any good? In a break from our usual format here at Cougar Review, we've decided to discuss this as a group. After the break, join me and one of my future co-hosts, Emily Mahler, as we discuss the good and the bad of Solo. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Cougar Review. Joining me now is Emily Mahler, the future co-host of this show. Emily, what did you think of Solo?
I loved it.
Yeah?
A lot. It was just, I went in with no expectations because of like production issues and stuff. When I walked out, I was like, yes, this is what I wanted. Yeah.
What specifically were you excited about going into it?
Lando.
Lando?
'Cause anything that has to do with Lando, Lando has always been one of my favorite characters. And also Donald Glover is amazing. So just seeing him take on the role and then know that how much Star Wars means to him is amazing.
Okay. So, if you went in already excited about it, that's one of the things that's it's tricky for me because I'm a lifelong casual Star Wars fan, and I've always liked and known about Star Wars, but I've never been, the hugest fan. So when I went into it, I kind of got a little mad when I was watching it. It felt really fan servicey. It felt like they were kind of spoon-feeding the audience what they said, oh, this is, it'd be really cool to see how Han got his name. It'd be really cool to see, how Han and Chewie met. Mm-hmm. All of these things, and I mean, they're fun in their own rights. I mean, I was never bored throughout the movie, don't get me wrong, but it just, it felt like a bit of a cheat. What do you think, though, about the idea of it being like fan service? Does that matter to you, or?
It doesn't really matter to me because I remember like growing up with a lightsaber in my hand. Like, I used to live in an apartment. Yeah, I used to live in an apartment, and if someone would, like, wrong me, I would get one of my lightsabers and chase them around the pool and, like, try to beat them. Like, I thought that I was Anakin Skywalker.
So wait, you would actually try to beat someone with a lightsaber?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Okay. So I know not to mess with you then. Okay.
Not anymore, because, I grew up, but I was, like,
let's get that.
Now.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Now they're just hanging up on my bookshelf.
Okay. So one of the things I thought was interesting about Solo, though, and I mean, obviously we don't need to, preface this with any kind of, spoiler warning. If you're watching this, chances are you've already seen the movie. Mm-hmm. One of the things I thought was interesting is, other than the reveal at the end, which I'm going to get to that a little later, there wasn't really anything to do with Jedi, Sith, the Skywalker saga in general. What are your thoughts on that? Rogue One obviously had already gone through something like this similarly, but what are your thoughts on a future where Star Wars is making films that don't have anything to do with Jedi?
I'm interested in it because there's a lot of things that are not Jedi and like Sith that revolve around the Star Wars universe. And I'm kind of excited to see what Lucasfilms does, like outside of the Skywalker saga. So this was cool. Like even though Han is in the Skywalker saga, but we didn't hear anything about Skywalkers.
Right.
So I'm really glad. Like I'm excited.
It's definitely exciting stuff. I mean, because if you look at, the docket of what they have coming out, there's obviously Star Wars Episode 9 is something that, we're looking forward to. There's also the Boba Fett movie that they just announced. And I mean, that's about as far removed from the Skywalker saga as you can get. Yeah. I mean, if it's a Boba Fett origin story, then, I mean, that has little to nothing to do with the Skywalkers. Let's talk a little bit, though, like on the one tie it has to Sith. The reveal of Maul there at the end there. What were your thoughts on that?
I screamed.
Yeah? Like what kind of scream? A good scream?
Like a good scream. The lightsaber that I used to chase people around the pool with was
the double-edged?
Yeah. And I was just like, ah! So like seeing him was cool. It wasn't, I knew that there was going to be a cameo or multiple cameos. I didn't know it was going to be him, but like in that situation, it was really interesting. And, he got sawed in half and thought he died, but he didn't.
I think there's some kind of like canon precedent, if I remember correctly. I haven't seen the show Star Wars Rebels, but I guess that goes through a whole story, correct me if I'm wrong, of him not dying and being given like spider legs, and then and then he's given like bipedal legs, and then he ends up becoming a crime boss. And so I guess that's kind of I still thought it was a little weird though. I mean, it seems not out of universe obviously, but it feels out of place in the world that they're establishing.
Because anything could happen in Star Wars.
Touché, but still, that being said, I mean, you have this thing where suddenly Darth Maul appears after dying in a film. What was that? 1999. It's been almost 20 years that we've been under the impression that this character's dead. And I actually heard a few people in my screening. They actually were like, "What the?" And I mean, I'm not going to finish this, but you get the point of what I'm saying. Yeah. And I felt that way on the inside. I was kind of I was a little confused. I don't know. Once I actually sat back and thought about it for a while, it worked for me a little better than some of the other fan servicey stuff did, actually. Yeah. I like the idea, like you're saying, that anything's possible in Star Wars. I like the idea that the world is so big that it kind of, sure, Darth Maul is a crime boss now in the Crimson Dawn, or
yeah.
I don't know. I thought that was kind of neat.
There's what is it? There's just like a bunch of things that could happen, and I feel like in the Star Wars universe we're kind of getting a lot of movies, but at the same time, half the Star Wars fans are like, no, we want to wait 10 years to have another saga, or yeah, give me all the movies, which I'm like that, because it's just like, I'll give you all my money. Like, I'll give Star Wars all my money.
I can see that. I mean, I think one of the big issues that I have with it is it almost feels like it's kind of modeling itself after the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Yeah. Because Marvel is putting out, 2 to 3 films a year. And in the context of the universe that they established, that makes sense. It's always building up towards the big event film that they're doing. Mm-hmm. So, you come out with an Ant-Man here, you come out with a Black Panther there, and then suddenly you have Avengers 3. You come out with, all these films, and then you have the big team-up movie.
Yeah.
Star Wars has always been more of an event, though, like, on its own. And so it's kind of weird to see that they have, like, Rogue One, Solo, Boba Fett, but also Episode 7, Episode 8, Episode 9, and it kind of makes it doesn't feel as special to me. I might be alone in that, but nonetheless, I mean, what are your thoughts?
Like with the MCU, like with Deadpool 2, I was so excited for Deadpool 2 when all the trailers came out and everything, and then I realized we had like this whole gap, like 3 months of we got nothing, and then with Solo, like all the trailers and stuff were coming earlier, and I liked that much better. Because I was so excited, like, even though production issues and stuff, like, I was excited to see TV spots. But I'm always excited to see Star Wars. Like, I watch Star Wars, like, one Star Wars movie, like, once or twice a month. be honest.
I just saw on your Letterboxd earlier today that you just rewatched Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, it was amazing to see like the like after Solo, to see everything that happened, and then when Han and Lando meet up again, it's kind of just like, this is why you're butting heads, and it's like nice to see, because I don't read the books,
Right.
because they all come in those small little things. I can't read that, so I also can't read on the tablet or whatever. So
I personally just can't read, but one thing I wanted to kind of point out, though, and this will be the last thing that we address before we close this out. There's an article on Birth Movies Death that I actually posted in my review of this on Cougar News. Did you see it's an article on the unfortunate implications of L3's fate being installed into the Millennium Falcon. Did you happen to read that article?
no.
The idea is basically that because she was installed into the Millennium Falcon, it recontextualizes everything that we've seen in the Star Wars universe that takes place after Solo. Because now suddenly, every time the Millennium Falcon takes a hit, L3 feels it. Every time something happens in the Falcon, she's there. Every time the ship is just abandoned and placed in a yard on, a strange desert planet for a decade or so, she's there, just waiting. What do you think? Because it kind of bums me out a little.
It bums me out a great deal. I'm going to go cry in the bathroom after this. I read something that was like the reason why Lando doesn't want to give up the Falcon to Han so easily is because L3 is still there. Mm-hmm. And like during Empire, when he sees his baby again, he sees L3, and like rewatching the Empire and seeing that, and him like piloting, I was like, this is making me emo.
Yeah.
I'm going to scream into a pillow. So that makes me want to scream into an even bigger pillow.
It's one of those things that I feel like it kind of, on a positive note, at the very least, it makes it so that, hey, L3 is always there, mm-hmm. and she's always going to be there. And to the benefit of Phoebe Waller-Bridge, she's one of the best.
Her. I love her.
Absolutely. One of the best characters of the film.
Mm-hmm.
And, don't get me wrong. I mean, I've got some harsh, opinions here and there, but, that's what I do here. But also, it's just that I liked it. I just felt like they could have brought more to it.
They could have, yeah. I didn't really enjoy Kira as much as I thought I was. I love Emilia Clarke. Mm-hmm. But the whole time, like the whole love story between Han and Kira, I didn't think it was necessary, because you don't see Han super broken up in A New Hope at all, or in other movies.
Smarmy Han Solo.
Yeah, so you didn't really need that, and also it bothered me that he wasn't kissing Princess Leia at all. It bothered me. I was just like, you don't need this love story. Not every single movie needs a love story, other than Lando and L3.
I feel like the existence of the love story there at all for Han and Kira kind of cheapens both Han Solo as a character and Kira as a character. Mm-hmm. The film kind of went a little overboard with ignoring its female characters, I felt.
Yeah.
So you have Kira, who's there at the service of Han Solo until...
They hide behind a love story.
Exactly. And so you have her kind of just, she's there for Han until the very end, when suddenly she's just there serving Darth Maul, mm-hmm. or Maul now as he's known. And then you have the idea of Val, who blew herself up for no reason.
For love.
Yeah, she's like, I'm doing it to save you. And it's like, well, you could just leave the bomb. Do you think mm-hmm. about that, maybe, Val?
Yeah. Star Wars does that a lot, though. They use their female characters as background for something else, and they also use their people of color characters as background characters. In a way, you could see that they service other people and not themselves.
I think that it's getting better.
It's getting better, but it's it gets better, then it gets worse, then it gets better, then it gets worse. I'm not blaming Kathleen Kennedy for anything. I just wanted the name drop.
Yeah, there it is. I think it's getting better in the main trilogy. I mean, if you look mm-hmm. over at episode 7 and 8 in particular. I mean, Rey has purpose, Rey has agency,
Yeah.
and her own story independent of both the Skywalkers and other men. Finn, similarly, I mean, Finn is front and center in it. Kind of got a bit of a disservice in The Last Jedi, but this isn't The Last Jedi episode. We can talk about that later.
Yeah.
I'd say in general, I like the more progressive side of what they're doing in the main trilogy. I'm just not quite convinced that they're doing the best they can in like Solo.
Yeah. But it, like with production issues and everything all around, I thought it was a really good movie. Just made me laugh a lot.
Definitely.
I walked in wanting to have a good time. I walked in having a good time. I got my heart broken too, because of L3. And yeah.
Cool.
And just the one scene. Also, I cried a lot. That one scene when Han saw hyperspace for the first time, like, he was just like, oh. And it's kind of like me watching a Star Wars movie for the first time.
That's kind of
in a way.
I can see that though. I mean, that's a good little allegory to kind of have. I mean, the experience of Han Solo going through that is like your experience when you saw Star Wars. Interesting. Cool. Well, I think that about does it for now. I mean, anything that you want to say or plug right now, or?
Nothing much.
Cool.
Just Lando's awesome.
So as always, I'm Jed Bookout. This is your future co-host right here, Emily Mahler. She'll be back in the fall taking over this show from me because I'm not a student at COC anymore. We'll still be doing episodes throughout the summer, but this is the last episode of the spring semester of Cougar Review. So as always, I'm Jed Bookout, introducing Emily Mahler, Darth Mahler right here. And we'll see you guys soon.